Ethan Carter's office on the 40th floor of his tech company's sleek headquarters was his sanctuary. From his vantage point, the city stretched below him like a meticulously coded program, every detail controlled, every variable accounted for. This was the life he had built, structured, efficient, and entirely predictable. Until today. The manila envelope sat like an intruder on his pristine glass desk, disrupting the neatly arranged gadgets and plans for his latest venture. His assistant, Olivia, had handed it to him just moments ago, along with a message that lingered in his mind. "A little girl is here to see you. She says her name is Mia." Ethan had almost dismissed it as a mistake. He wasn't the type of man little girls sought out. Not for advice, not for autographs, and certainly not for answers. But when he looked up from the envelope, there she was, standing nervously in Olivia's shadow, 7 years old, with tousled brown hair and a purple backpack too big for her tiny frame. What stopped Ethan cold were her eyes, amber flecked with gold. They were Sophia's eyes, the woman he had loved and lost years ago, and the one name he'd spent so long trying to forget. Ethan Carter's office on the 40th floor of his tech company's sleek headquarters was his sanctuary. From his vantage point, the city stretched below him like a meticulously coded program. Every detail controlled, every variable accounted for. This was the life he had built, structured, efficient, and entirely predictable. Until today. The manila envelope sat like an intruder on his pristine glass desk, disrupting the neatly arranged gadgets and plans for his latest venture. His assistant, Olivia, had handed it to him just moments ago, along with a message that lingered in his mind. "A little girl is here to see you. She says her name is Mia." Ethan had almost dismissed it as a mistake. He wasn't the type of man little girls sought out, not for advice, not for autographs, and certainly not for answers. But when he looked up from the envelope, there she was, standing nervously in Olivia's shadow. 7 years old, with tousled brown hair and a purple backpack too big for her tiny frame. What stopped Ethan cold were her eyes, amber flecked with gold. They were Sophia's eyes, the woman he had loved and lost years ago, and the one name he'd spent so long trying to forget. Ethan Carter stood frozen outside his office, watching Mia sit in the conference room, her legs swinging beneath a chair. She had been given hot chocolate, which sat untouched on the table, steam rising as she stared quietly at the screen of her tablet. "Mr. Carter," Olivia said softly, breaking his trance. "Child Services is on their way, but she keeps asking to speak with you." Ethan nodded stiffly, his thoughts racing. He had spent years mastering the art of negotiation, of handling crises with precision, yet he felt utterly unprepared for this moment. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the room. Mia looked up at him, her amber eyes steady and piercing. "Mom said you wouldn't believe the letter," she said without preamble. "That's why she made this." She turned the tablet around, and a video began to play. Sophia's face appeared, thinner than he remembered, her head wrapped in a colorful scarf. Despite her frailty, her eyes still shone with that unmistakable spark. "Ethan," she began, her voice calm but tinged with emotion, "if you're watching this, it means I'm gone and Mia is with you. I know this will be hard, but she's your daughter, our daughter. I always believed you could be the father she deserves. Please take care of her." The video ended abruptly, leaving Ethan staring at the screen. Mia sat quietly, watching his reaction. "Why didn't she tell me sooner?" he asked aloud, not expecting an answer. "She said you were busy building your company," Mia replied, her voice matter-of-fact. "She didn't want to stop you." The weight of Sophia's words, of her faith in him, pressed heavily on Ethan's chest. He looked at Mia, who now seemed impossibly small and fragile. Child Services arrived shortly after, but as they explained the next steps, temporary care, home visits, Ethan barely listened. His eyes remained fixed on Mia, who clutched her tablet like a lifeline. "No," he interrupted, his voice firmer than he felt. "She stays with me." The caseworker hesitated, glancing at Ethan's assistant, Olivia, who nodded slightly. Very well, Mr. Carter. We'll begin the emergency custody process. As they left, Ethan knelt to Mia's level. I'm not sure I know how to do this, he admitted. Mia's eyes softened, and she offered a small smile. Mom said you'd figure it out. In that moment, Ethan realized this wasn't just about Mia needing him. It was about him needing her too. The first night was awkward. Ethan had cleared his schedule to stay home, but the silence in his penthouse felt oppressive. Mia sat on the couch, her backpack still clutched tightly, while Ethan hovered nearby, unsure how to break the ice. Are you hungry? He finally asked, gesturing toward the kitchen. Mia shook her head. Mom always made spaghetti on our first night somewhere new, but I'm not sure you can cook. Ethan blinked at the bluntness of her reply, but felt a smile tug at his lips. You're probably right. Spaghetti might be too ambitious for me. How about pizza? That night, over-delivered pizza, Ethan learned about Mia's love for stars. She spoke animatedly about constellations and meteor showers, her voice growing stronger with each word. Mom said you taught her about the stars in college, Mia said suddenly, her tone softening. Ethan froze, memories of long nights with Sophia under the open sky rushing back. She told you about that? Mia nodded. She said you knew all the stories. Like how the Little Dipper is part of a bigger bear? The mention of Sophia stirred something deep within him. Would you like to see the stars here? He asked. But we're in the city, Mia replied, confused. I have a projector, Ethan explained, leading her to the guest room. With Mia's help, they set up the device, turning her ceiling into a galaxy of constellations. That's Ursa Major, Ethan said, pointing, the Great Bear. And the Little Dipper is there, Mia added, her eyes lighting up. They spent hours tracing constellations, sharing stories and memories. Mia's laughter, soft and hesitant at first, filled the room. The next morning, Ethan called Olivia. Cancel all my meetings for the next week, he said firmly. I need time to adjust. Adjusting wasn't easy. Ethan's sleek penthouse, designed for efficiency, lacked any warmth. When Mia tripped on the sharp-edged coffee table, he realized how unprepared his space was for a child. By the end of the week, he had installed child-friendly furniture and stocked the fridge with Mia's favorite foods. He even surprised her with a small telescope for their rooftop evenings. As they stared at the stars one night, Mia whispered, Mom said the stars help you find your way home. Ethan glanced at her, his chest tightening. Maybe they're helping me find mine, he replied softly. Over the next few days, Ethan made more efforts to connect. He began reading to Mia before bed, carefully choosing books Sophia might have read to her. One night, after he stumbled over a funny voice for a character, Mia giggled. You're not very good at this, she teased. Ethan grinned. Then you'll have to help me get better. Slowly, Mia began to open up. She shared stories about her mother, how Sophia hummed while cooking, how they danced in the living room to old songs, how they made pancakes shaped like stars. Do you think we could make them sometime? She asked one morning, her tone tentative. I'd love that, Ethan replied, his chest tightening at her growing trust. Little by little, the distance between them shrank, replaced by laughter, shared stories, and a bond that deepened with every moment spent together. One evening, Ethan found Mia sitting by the window, clutching a small stuffed bear and staring at the city lights. Her dinner sat untouched on the table behind her. Mia? He asked gently, stepping closer. She didn't turn around but spoke softly. Mom always said the stars would guide us. But now she's not here to show me where to look. Ethan's chest tightened at the sadness in her voice. I know you miss her, he said, kneeling beside her. I miss her too. Mia looked at him, tears welling in her amber eyes. It's not the same. She was my mom. She knew everything about me. Ethan nodded, his voice steady. You're right. I'll never know her the way you did. But she wanted me to be here for you, and I'm trying. I'll never stop trying. Mia hesitated, her lip quivering, then reached out and grabbed his hand. Promise. "Promise," Ethan said, holding her hand tightly. The next morning brought more challenges when Sophia's parents, Henry and Margaret, arrived unannounced. "Mia needs stability," Margaret said. Her voice clipped as she looked around Ethan's minimalist penthouse. "Not this. She needs a real home, with us." Ethan tried to keep calm. "She is surrounded by love. Here, with me. I'm her father." Henry stepped forward, his voice firm but measured. "We've been a part of her life since she was born. Do you know her favorite bedtime story? Her special morning routine?" "We do." Before Ethan could respond, a small voice broke through. "I want to stay here," Mia said, stepping into the room. Her gaze was steady as she looked at her grandparents. "I love you, Grandma and Grandpa, but Mom chose Dad to take care of me. She trusted him. I do too." Ethan froze, his breath catching in his throat. It was the first time Mia had called him Dad. The word was small, yet it carried a weight that filled the entire room, settling deep into his heart. He blinked, trying to steady himself, before replying softly, "Thank you, Mia. That means more than you know." Margaret hesitated, her eyes softening as she looked at Mia, who stood firm beside Ethan. "If this is what you want, Mia, we'll respect it. But your grandfather and I still want to be here for you, in any way we can." She turned to Ethan, her voice more measured. "If we stay, it's because she needs all of us, and we want to make sure you succeed as her father." Ethan nodded quickly. "Of course, she needs all of us." Over the next few weeks, Henry and Margaret remained at Ethan's home, and the tension began to ease. They helped him learn Mia's routines, her bedtime songs, her favorite foods, and worked together to create a warm, family-centered space. One evening, as they sat around the table, Margaret watched Ethan attempt to braid Mia's hair. It wasn't perfect, but Mia beamed. "Not bad for a beginner," she teased. Margaret smiled softly. "You're trying, Ethan, and that means everything." At dinner, as they all sat down to a dinner of Mia's favorite spaghetti, she looked up at Ethan. "Mom said families are like trees. They grow new branches when they need to." A week later, during a stargazing trip Henry suggested, Mia held Ethan's hand tightly. "Mom said families grow like trees. Their roots keep them strong, even when the branches grow in different directions." Ethan smiled, his gaze meeting Margaret's and Henry's. "Then let's make sure this tree keeps growing strong." Under the canopy of stars, their unconventional family found its footing, stronger with every shared moment. Months later, Ethan stood in his living room, marveling at how much had changed. The once cold and clinical space now pulsed with life and warmth. The glass coffee table had been replaced by a wooden one with rounded edges, and the sharp minimalist decor had given way to cozy rugs, colorful cushions, and shelves packed with books and toys. The walls, once bare, now told a story of their evolving family. A series of photos hung prominently, Mia in her Halloween costume as a shooting star, Ethan caught mid-flip with pancake batter splattered across the counter, and Henry and Margaret reading to Mia under a blanket fort they'd built together. At the center of the couch lay a quilt from Sophia's home, its constellation pattern a beloved reminder of her presence, stitched into the fabric of their new life. "Dad, are you ready?" Mia's excited voice pulled Ethan from his thoughts. Hearing her call him Dad still sent a jolt through his heart. It was a title he'd never expected, but now it felt like the most significant part of his identity. "Almost," he called back, grabbing the picnic basket he'd prepared. Today wasn't just another family outing, it was the day they would visit Sophia's thinking spot. When they arrived, Henry and Margaret were already waiting under the shade of the sprawling oak tree. The sunlight filtered through its broad branches, creating a dappled pattern on the ground. "This was her sanctuary," Margaret said, her voice thick with emotion. "Whenever she needed clarity or strength, she came here." Mia walked slowly toward the weathered bench beneath the tree. She ran her fingers across the wood, reverently tracing its lines and grooves. "Mom told me this was her special place," she said softly. "She said it made her feel close to the stars." Ethan knelt beside her, his voice gentle. Your mom wanted us to be here together, to remember her and to keep building something new." From her backpack, Mia pulled out a small envelope. "She left this for today," she said, handing it to Ethan. Ethan unfolded the letter, and Sophia's familiar handwriting leapt off the page. "My dearest family, today is about growth, about planting roots and nurturing the love that connects you all. This oak tree has always reminded me of what family should be. Its roots run deep, holding it steady, while its branches grow toward the light. Keep growing, together. Build something beautiful, and remember, love multiplies, it doesn't divide." Ethan's hands trembled as he read the words aloud. After he finished, the family sat in reflective silence before Margaret spoke. "She always did know how to say the right thing," she murmured, her hand resting on Henry's. Together, they planted a small oak sapling near the old tree. Mia pressed the last handful of soil into place, then looked up at Ethan with a hopeful smile. "Do you think it'll grow as big as this one?" Ethan knelt beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "With enough care, it just might." Henry handed Mia a watering can, and she poured the first drops over the young tree. The breeze rustled the leaves above them, as if Sophia herself were watching. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they spread a blanket under the old oak tree and shared a picnic. Ethan watched Mia laugh with her grandparents, her face alight with joy. This wasn't just a tribute to Sophia. It was a celebration of the life they were building together, a family rooted in love, loss, and resilience. The sapling swayed gently in the wind, its young branches reaching for the sky. Ethan watched it, feeling the weight of Sophia's words in his heart. Roots running deep, branches stretching toward the light. It wasn't just a tree. It was a reminder of how far they had come and how much further they could grow together as a family. A year had passed since Ethan and Mia planted the sapling under the old oak tree. The once tiny sprout had grown taller, its leaves a vibrant green reaching toward the sky. Ethan stood on the terrace of their home, looking out at the garden they had built together. It was Mia's idea to create a thinking spot of their own, inspired by her mother's sanctuary. The oak sapling from Sophia's favorite place now thrived at the center, surrounded by a colorful mix of flowers that Mia had carefully chosen with Margaret's help. "Dad, come on, you're going to be late," Mia's voice echoed from the kitchen, filled with the confidence and joy that had blossomed over the past year. Ethan turned to see her standing in the doorway, wearing a dress decorated with tiny constellations, a birthday gift from Margaret. She looked taller, her hair neatly braided, but her eyes still carried the same spark of determination that reminded him so much of Sophia. "I'm coming," he said, grabbing the picnic basket he'd prepared. Today was special. It was the one-year anniversary of their first visit to Sophia's thinking spot, and they were returning to celebrate. Henry and Margaret were already waiting at the park when Ethan and Mia arrived. The family had grown closer in the past year, finding balance and harmony in their unconventional arrangement. "You're late," Margaret teased, but her smile softened the words. Mia ran ahead to check on the sapling, now nearly as tall as she was. "It's growing so fast," she exclaimed, inspecting the leaves carefully. "It's because you take such good care of it," Ethan said, kneeling beside her. They laid out a picnic blanket beneath the original oak tree, the same one where Sophia had written her letters. Over sandwiches and homemade star-shaped cookies, Mia's favorite, they reminisced about the past year. "Remember the pancake disaster?" Margaret said with a laugh. "Hey, I got better," Ethan replied, holding up his hands defensively. Mia grinned. "Yeah, but you'll never beat Grandpa's silly pancake faces." Henry ruffled Mia's hair. "They're an art form, kiddo." As the sun began to set, Ethan stood and retrieved a small wooden box from the picnic basket. "Mia, there's something I want to show you." Inside the box was a pressed leaf from the sapling they'd planted a year ago, preserved in glass. "This leaf is from the first day we became a family," Ethan said, handing it to her. "I wanted you to have it as a reminder of how far we've come." Mia cradled the glass frame in her hands, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Ethan glanced at Margaret and Henry, who both nodded. He smiled softly. I know she would be. As the stars began to appear, Mia leaned against Ethan's shoulder, her voice sleepy but content. You were right, Dad. The stars really do help you find your way home. And there, under the canopy of stars and the growing oak tree, their family felt complete. What would you do if your life changed in an instant like Ethan's? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. See you next video.